Ever heard of the 3-second rule to beat procrastination? That if you just act within 3 seconds, you will magically become productive? Here's the truth. It's a lie. A seductive lie. Because if procrastination could be fixed in 3 seconds, why are you still watching this video right now? Procrastination isn't about speed, it's about psychology. Fear, your brain's wiring, and today we're exposing the myth and replacing it with what actually works. By the end of this, you'll never guilt trip yourself over 3 seconds again. Ready to fix this for good? Let's go. Have you ever heard of the 3-second rule for beating procrastination? You know, the idea that if you act within 3 seconds of thinking about a task, you'll magically overcome laziness and become ultra productive forever? Sounds too good to be true, right? That's because it is. While motivational gurus and viral TikTok clips might make it seem like a foolproof hack, the truth is far more complex. Procrastination isn't just a bad habit, it's a battle against our own psychology, fears, and deeply ingrained patterns. Let's be real. If beating procrastination were as easy as counting to 3, we'd all be productivity ninjas by now. But here's the hard truth. Real change doesn't happen in 3 seconds. It happens through understanding why we delay, rewiring our mindset, and building systems that work with our brains, not against them. The 3-second rule is a catchy myth, but it ignores the real work required to create lasting discipline. Think about it. How many times have you rushed to start a task after hearing this advice, only to burn out, lose focus, or fall back into old habits? That's because motivation isn't a light switch, it's a fire that needs constant fueling. The 3-second rule gives us the illusion of control, but true productivity comes from strategy, self-awareness, and resilience. It's time to stop chasing quick fixes and start embracing the real journey of growth. So if the 3-second rule isn't the magic bullet, what actually works? How do we move past procrastination for good? The answer lies in debunking the myths, understanding our triggers, and adopting sustainable habits. Today, we'll break down why the 3-second rule fails, the real science behind procrastination, and the proven strategies that actually help you take control of your time and your life. The 3-second rule for beating procrastination is irresistible because it promises instant transformation. Just count to 3, act immediately, and suddenly you're productive. It spreads like wildfire because it taps into our deepest desire for a simple, painless solution. In a world overwhelmed by distractions and endless to-do lists, the idea that we can hack our brains with a 3-second trick is intoxicating. Social media amplifies this, turning it into bite-sized, shareable content that fuels our hope for a quick fix. But this appeal is rooted in a fundamental psychological trap, our addiction to instant gratification. We're wired to seek shortcuts, to favor immediate rewards over long-term effort, and the 3-second rule exploits that flaw perfectly. It feels empowering in the moment, like we've outsmarted procrastination, but that rush is fleeting. The harsh reality. Procrastination isn't a problem of timing, it's a problem of emotions, habits, and mindset. The 3-second rule fails long-term because it doesn't address the real barriers: fear of failure, lack of clarity, or sheer overwhelm. It's like slapping a bandage on a broken bone. Sure, you might force yourself to start a task once or twice, but without tackling the underlying resistance, you'll keep falling back into old patterns. Worse, when the rule inevitably fails, it breeds self-blame. Why can't I just do it? Which only deepens the procrastination cycle. The truth is, real change requires more than 3 seconds of courage. It requires strategy, self-compassion, and systems that work even when motivation fades. The allure of the 3-second rule isn't just deceptive, it distracts us from doing the real work that actually leads to lasting progress. Procrastination isn't about laziness, it's about self-protection. When we delay a task, it's often because our brain is trying to shield us from discomfort, whether it's the fear of failing, the pressure of perfectionism, or the paralysis of too many choices. Imagine staring at a blank page, terrified your work won't be good enough, or agonizing over which project to tackle first until you end up doing neither. These aren't signs of poor discipline, they're signs of being human. Our brains are wired to avoid pain, and when a task feels threatening, whether emotionally or cognitively, procrastination becomes the escape hatch. But there's another force at play: the constant tug-of-war between instant gratification and long-term rewards. Your brain would rather scroll through social media for a quick hit of dopamine than grind through a difficult project, even if that project could change your life. It's not a moral failing, it's biology. The limbic system craves immediate pleasure, while the prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning and self-control, struggles to keep up. When fatigue, stress, or uncertainty weaken that executive function, procrastination wins by default. And sometimes procrastination isn't the enemy, it's a misguided coping mechanism. Putting off a task might be your mind's way of saying, "This feels too big," or "I need a break." Labeling it as laziness ignores the real issue. Maybe you're overwhelmed, underprepared, or subconsciously resisting work that feels misaligned with your goals. Procrastination is rarely about the task itself. It's about what the task represents: judgment, boredom, or a loss of autonomy. Until we address these root causes, no amount of time management hacks will stick. The key isn't to shame ourselves into action, but to understand and dismantle the barriers our own minds have built. The 3-second rule crumbles under real-world pressure because it treats procrastination as a simple lack of action rather than what it really is: a complex interplay of emotions, habits, and cognitive barriers. Counting to 3 and forcing yourself to start might work occasionally, but it does nothing to address the fear of failure, the weight of perfectionism, or the exhaustion that made you avoid the task in the first place. It's like trying to silence a fire alarm instead of putting out the fire. Real productivity isn't just about movement, it's about sustainable momentum, and that requires engaging with the mental blocks beneath the surface. Relying on this rule also conflates motivation with discipline, a dangerous misconception. Motivation is fleeting, rising and falling with energy levels, mood, and external circumstances. Discipline, on the other hand, is the ability to show up even when motivation has evaporated. The 3-second rule tricks you into thinking you've hacked your way into consistency, but it's just another form of dependency on momentary willpower. When that initial rush fades, and it always does, you're left with the same unresolved resistance, now compounded by frustration that the magic trick failed you. Worst of all, when the rule doesn't deliver, it spawns a vicious cycle of guilt and self-blame. You start questioning why you couldn't just follow through, labeling yourself as lazy or undisciplined, which only reinforces the procrastination loop. The rule's oversimplification sets unrealistic expectations, making setbacks feel like personal failures rather than natural parts of the process. True progress isn't born from rigid one-size-fits-all solutions, but from adaptable strategies that acknowledge the messy, nonlinear reality of human behavior. The 3-second rule doesn't just fall short, it distracts you from building the deeper resilience you actually need. The most effective antidotes to procrastination aren't gimmicks, they're strategic approaches that work with human psychology rather than against it. Take the 2-minute rule. If a task takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. If it's larger, just commit to the first 2 minutes. This bypasses resistance by shrinking the initial hurdle, creating momentum that often carries you far beyond that tiny starting point. It's not about finishing, it's about tricking your brain into beginning, because action itself is the most powerful motivator. Time blocking takes a different approach by treating your priorities like unbreakable appointments. Instead of relying on vague intentions to work on that project someday, you assign specific hours in your calendar, transforming abstract tasks into concrete commitments. This method leverages the power of structure. Your schedule becomes the external authority that overrides internal hesitation. Meanwhile, Mel Robbins' 5-second rule finds its true value not in starting tasks, but in short-circuiting the hesitation that precedes them. Counting backward interrupts the brain's instinct to overthink, creating a momentary window where action becomes possible before doubt creeps back in. Sustainable productivity requires more than personal willpower. It demands smart systems, setting up accountability partners. Removing distractions from your environment or automating decisions eliminates the need for constant self-control. But perhaps most crucial is practicing self-compassion. Beating yourself up for procrastinating only fuels the cycle, while reframing setbacks as data, not failures, helps you adjust strategies without shame. These approaches work because they address procrastination holistically, reducing friction, creating structure, and nurturing the mindset needed to persist when motivation inevitably flags. Real change happens not through force, but through designing conditions where success becomes the path of least resistance. True discipline isn't about white-knuckling your way through tasks, it's about rewiring your brain through consistent repetition until action becomes automatic. Neuroscience shows that habits form through a loop of cue, routine, and reward, meaning the key to lasting change lies in creating reliable triggers and celebrating small wins. When you consistently pair a specific time, location, or emotional state with a productive behavior, you're not just completing a task, you're literally building new neural pathways that make future action easier. This is why rituals matter more than motivation. They transform effort into identity. The most profound shift happens when you stop saying, "I should work out," and start saying, "I'm someone who prioritizes health." This identity level change alters your relationship with discipline. It's no longer about forcing behavior, but about acting in alignment with who you believe yourself to be. Every time you follow through, you're collecting evidence for this new self-concept, creating a virtuous cycle where action reinforces identity, which then inspires further action. But this process only works if you measure progress differently. Obsessing over perfection guarantees disappointment, while celebrating streaks of consistency, no matter how small, builds confidence in your ability to show up. That means honoring the days you work for 15 minutes just as much as the days you work for 5 hours, because discipline isn't measured in output, but in reliability. The compound effect of these small, regular efforts eventually dwarfs any single burst of perfect productivity. When you focus on becoming the type of person who takes action consistently rather than chasing flawless performance, you unlock the kind of discipline that sustains itself not through willpower, but through self-reinforcing identity and systems. So is the 3-second rule completely useless? Not necessarily. It can be a helpful nudge in the right direction, but it's not the life-changing cure that some claim it to be. Real progress comes from understanding yourself, designing smarter systems, and committing to the daily grind of improvement. You don't need a gimmick, you need a game plan. Procrastination isn't your enemy, it's a signal. It's your mind telling you that something feels overwhelming, scary, or unclear. Instead of fighting it with rushed 3-second sprints, learn to listen, adapt, and take strategic action. Every small step you take is a brick in the foundation of unstoppable discipline. So forget the 3-second rule. You're not a robot, you're a human with incredible potential. Stop waiting for a magic trick and start embracing the work. Because the only rule that truly matters is this: start before you're ready. Keep going when it's hard, and never let temporary setbacks define your story. Now, what's one thing you'll commit to today? Let's make it happen. So here's your reality check. The 3-second rule didn't fail you. The myth of instant fixes failed you. Because real change doesn't happen in seconds, it happens in streaks. In showing up when you don't feel like it. In 2-minute starts, in scheduled hours, in compassionate comebacks after bad days. Starting today, I need you to forget motivation hacks and build something better. Your identity. Every time you open your calendar instead of waiting for inspiration, every time you celebrate a small win without judging it, you're not just doing a task, you're becoming someone who takes action. The timer ends now. Your life isn't a 3-second countdown, it's an open field. Walk forward. Not because some rule forced you, but because that's who you are now. First step's ready when you are.